Are you looking for something quick, easy, and beautiful to paint? Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica, and today we'll be painting 3 wildflowers that are easy to draw, fun to paint, and beginner friendly. I'm working in a looser style with just a touch of detail to make them feel complete. I was inspired by a watercolor pencil project I did on this channel last summer, but this time we're using traditional watercolor to bring each flower to life. First we'll sketch, then we'll paint loose, and finally add those finishing touches, all in a way that's approachable even if you're just starting out. If you'd rather trace instead of draw, I've created printable outlines too. You can find those in my Etsy shop linked below. Now let's go ahead and get started. So I have several small pieces of Canson XL watercolor paper. This is cheap watercolor paper that I'm using today because I want to use some faster techniques, and I'm going to sketch directly on the paper. And for brushes, I will use the Artegria round, and I do have Simply Simmons round as well. I'll probably use some of both, I'll see. And then I'll use my professional watercolor paint. Most of this is M. Graham. I do have a quinacridone magenta by Core. Otherwise, I have Hansa Yellow Deep by M. Graham, quinacridone rose, phthalo blue, and ultramarine blue. We start by sketching the wild rose. So what I'm going to do is start with a circle here, somewhere maybe like over here. Should come down a little bit, maybe down a little bit. This is going to be the center of our flower. And then I'll just come around like so with a, like kind of create a ring. This is where we're going to put all of our little stamen. And then we're going to do 5 petals. And so I'll just go like this. I'm going to make a line for the center of the petal. And that's where I'm going to basically draw my petal, kind of going around it. This one's going to be a little bit shorter because it's facing, or it's coming kind of towards us like that. And one like this. So basically five little lines, and then I'll just turn each of these into a petal. And let myself have the shakes. I can already feel the shakes from my coffee this morning. Well, this is perfect for this. I don't need to have control. Just do something like that. They don't have to be perfectly round. This one is going to be a little bit like this because it's on its side. We might even make a little fold over like that. So that's just a little bit of that petal. So it's kind of coming down and then around, and you can kind of just see the underside of it a little bit. And then we'll do one more here. How do I want to shape this one? Maybe a little bit like this because it's on its side. I don't know if that's really sloppy. Oh well, good enough. And then what I will do is go ahead and just draw some really simple, loose, sketchy leaves. I wouldn't have minded had I left myself a little bit more room for leaves over here, but that's okay. We'll just keep it simple. We can always trim the paper if we're not quite liking it, or if you want to, just start your sketch a little bit further on your page. So, sorry, I should have mentioned, when I do the leaves, basically it's a line for the vein. Then I kind of just create this leaf shape around it and the leaf shape around it. So I do the vein first, kind of the center vein, and then just create a leaf shape around it. I'm not loving this one. I was trying to make it kind of like it was kind of curved like that. Yeah, it's okay. That one's okay. Let's just leave that like so. And I'll probably lift some of my lines a little bit before I actually go and paint. And for the Aster, I'm going to start with some circles. Well, actually, kind of like an oval shape that's a little bit on its side. So let's put one here. I'm thinking like a flower here, flower here, flower here. Again, I'm taking my inspiration from this. So just kind of do something simple. So over here, I have a kind of oval shape. And then over here, another one, and another one here. When I did this in watercolor pencil, I did the sketch right with watercolor pencil, and then it was kind of easy to just go ahead and throw the color in. But I'm just going to go ahead and do a few lines just to kind of guide me for where I want my petals to be, because I want these ones a little shorter along the front and then a little longer here along this back area, just to kind of show that it's on its side. And then this one, I'll make it a little bit more like almost like it's facing us. Whoops. It's going to be like doing spokes on a wagon wheel, but you do want them. What I did there was wonky. I have to kind of keep in mind that I'm, you know, going straight through like that. Like if it helps to do almost like an X through it first, so you don't get your little petals too wonky, or your guidelines for your petals too wonky, you can do that. And this one's going to be a little bit more head on, like just facing us. This could even be a little bit rounder. So that's all I'm doing for that. And then I'll do one more over here. And again, this one might make it somewhat sideways. So again, if you want to do a line on either side of that first, to kind of help make sure you're kind of centered, if you will, and that they're making sense. You could do that, and then just do a few short ones again over here, a little bit longer in the back. Sometimes, depending on the angle of your little daisy, it can be almost like they're short more at the back, longer at the front. It really depends on the angle, but this is the angle I'm using today, keeping it kind of simple. And then we'll just do some simple stems. And then for the leaves, they kind of have the kind of long, skinny little leaves here. So I'm just going to add a few every now and then, maybe make them a little shorter as they come up to the top. So I'm basically just doing a little vein and then just kind of surrounding it with a bit of leaf shape, kind of something like that. Super easy, nothing fancy. Maybe I'll make this stem kind of cross over that one, and we'll just add a few more of these. I don't know, do we like that? Sometimes when I'm talking and trying to draw, I do kind of weird, sloppy things that I don't like. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. We'll leave it like that for now. I can always, you know what? If I'm not happy with it right now, I might not be happy with it later. Let's just try. Is that going to be any better? I'm not sure. I could always add a few small ones. I don't know. You guys are probably looking at it going, I know where I'd put that leaf, not where you're putting it. I'm kind of overthinking it. So let's just leave it. Maybe when I get to the painting stage, I'll loosen up, and if I want to switch things up a little bit, then I can. So let's move on to the bluebell. All right, so for the bluebells, I'm going to do a nice kind of long stem that droops over. It's going to look a little bit like a floppy cane or something like this. And then I'll probably throw some more stems on here, or like, you know, stems kind of coming off the main stem. But what I want to try and do first, maybe figure out the placement of my flowers. And I know I need to make them a little more detailed. For now, all I'm doing is just drawing these little kind of bell shapes on here. And yes, I will fix them up and make them look more like a bluebell in a minute. Just kind of get my placement where I want it. I don't know, maybe one over, where do we want another one? I feel like I've already kind of gone wonky with my composition. Some of you who are non-artists might even be finding this comical to watch because I'm struggling to figure out where to place things. Okay, let's try one here. I already have 5, and 5 is a nice number. Okay, let's just do some more stems for these ones. But I almost feel like it's missing something still. So I might do, I don't know, maybe a little something here. So yeah, I just joined them. The ones that weren't yet joined, kind of bring some stems again over, and they're all attaching to the main stem. Maybe I could add one more here, just a tiny one, make this like a little, almost like a bud that's not fully open. We'll just make it a little smaller, a little rounder, then we'll attach it. How's that? Working? Let's refine these now. So what they have is they kind of have an area that kind of goes something like this, right? And then they kind of get wide here and come into more their bell shape. And then when they come down, they have these little tiny kind of serrations or whatever. I have a scalloped, not quite a scallop, but you know what I mean, the little details that make them look like a bluebell. So kind of the ends of the little petals. So again, I have this, I'm going around doing kind of this horseshoe shape sort of at the top, and then coming down more like a bell shape. And as I come to the bottom, letting it kind of swing outwards. And then I'm doing these little, just this little, almost zigzag shapes. So let's go again, horseshoe shape, then come kind of bulge out and then swing out a little bit this way. And you don't have to just do 3 across here. You could have 4. And I'll just keep doing that to the rest of these. And of course, when they're behind, you don't need to show the whole thing. And then finally, this one, I'm not sure. I'm almost thinking of it as a little bit of a bud still. So I'll just make it, I'm really slopping on there. Let's erase this a little bit. This is a gum eraser. It tends to erase well without leaving smudges. This is by Staedtler. I wonked that. I made them line up with each other. That was dumb, isn't it? It has to come up a little bit. They were lined up too perfectly and it looked too symmetrical. So we're just going to come up a little ways, draw that on there again. Okay, I think that's better. It's small. I could even make it more rounded because the buds are more rounded. And then we'll do leaves. And I have my kneadable eraser here. I'm going to show you in a minute. So for leaves, let's do one maybe right here, and then another one here. And again, all I'm doing is the vein so far. Okay, so I did 2 veins, and then I'm going to come around and do this one like that. This one will be a little interesting. Let's do this one. This is the simplest leaf. Basically, just created a leaf shape kind of going around the vein. Do the same thing here. And then this one is the one that gets interesting. I'm going to come where I've done this folded over section, and I'm going to do something like that. And then on this side, so this is no longer the center vein, this is just the outside of the leaf. I'm just going to come something like that, and we'll do a center vein in the middle. Kind of see how that works. It's folded over. I could make it come a little bit, you know, a little bit this way as well, a little bit further down. Okay, so what I want to use the kneadable eraser now for is it's a gentler eraser. It doesn't actually leave like all the little shavings. This one is notorious for, like, you can see it just peels, but it does give you a beautiful clean erase. And if you need to do heavy duty erasing, it's really good. The kneadable eraser is just gentle, and you can kind of just, you can even blot or lift. So in this case, any of you who have any experience with watercolor, you know that once you wet pencil, it's permanent. So we need to get as much pencil off as we can to not have a lot of pencil behind, but we still want to see our sketch. This is going to give us guidance, but we don't want our guidance to be the thing that's standing out too much. I'm trying to get rid of the mess I had made earlier there. And there is tiny little leaves, by the way, at the top of these. We can add them with our pencil if we want to. It's getting so light you probably can barely see what I'm doing. Maybe I should stay a bit darker with my pencil just so that you guys can see, which means there's going to be pencil left behind. I'll just quickly make it a little bolder for your sake. Okay, do those little leaves while I'm at it too. They don't have to be symmetrical. Mine are looking a little symmetrical, but kind of like that. Okay, let's lift a little bit more here. You don't need as much, you don't need to see it as clearly in this area, right? Plus, sometimes I take artistic license as I paint, and my paintbrush and water can dictate some of the things that happen. So let's just quickly erase that. And like I say, if you want to make yours lighter here, that's not a bad idea. Okay, so I've got all of these now. And so the same thing, if you feel like things are a bit dark, just go over everything lightly. Use, I like a kneadable eraser for this part. I find it's a nice gentle erase for getting rid of excess pencil, but you can get rid of as much pencil as you would like. Do a little bit on this one as well. Definitely these center lines, I want to get rid of them. And anywhere where when I sketched a little heavy. Just kind of lighten it off a little bit. And then we will go ahead and start adding our paint. All right, so what I have here is my Alberta rose, or wild rose. It's actually our provincial flower, and it is in bloom right now. So I'm calling it an Alberta rose, but you can just call it a wild rose. And I'm going to be painting it pink. Now I have a mixture here on this plate. This is a ceramic plate where I have actually just quinacridone rose and quinacridone magenta kind of together, but I also have both of them individually here. And I'm kind of like, I kind of like this color. Like it's just a nice kind of middle pink, but you can use whatever pink you would like. I'm just going to like moisten things quickly with a brush and some water. So let's just kind of get things a little bit moistened up here. And then what I'm going to actually do, move my water to the side, is I have, okay, as far as what sizes of brushes am I using here? I'll probably mostly work with the 6 or the 8. So these are my 6s. That's a Simply Simmons and an Artegria 6. And then the Simply Simmons and Artegria 8s. But I have an 10 as well, and I might use the 10 when I want to do bigger shapes. So it's really your comfort level. There's not a right or wrong brush size, but I'm just going to go in and fill the rose in, just the whole thing, with water. I went out of the line and just see that I did that. Do your best to stay in your little inside the lines if you can help it. And I'm just filling it in with water, and then I'm going to do some dropping with the paint, and I'm going to be really loose and playful here. So now I've got the 8. And I'm just going to pick up some paint. So anything here on this palette, I think I'll be happy with. And I'm just going to drop it around the outside of this flower. I've got a little bit of fuzz on my brush. Okay, let's just drop. Might need a bit more. There we go. And just kind of come around the outside. And yes, that one is where I kind of went a little bit sloppy because I went out of the line with my water. And I'll just drag this all the way down and come over here, do the same thing. And you can just see I'm letting the paint and the water just kind of do whatever it wants to do there. I've got a splatter of water up there too. It's okay. Just fill this in. This is going to be a much brighter, more intense wild rose than the one I did last summer, and I'm okay with that. I looked at them this morning and I'm like, you know, depending on the time of day and how much sun they've had and all the rest, they can actually be quite vibrant. So I think I'm okay with that. You can see I've kind of got almost a dry area here. And if you don't like that, you want to smooth that around, you can. The Simply Simmons brushes are firmer, and if you want a more controlled look, you can kind of massage it and smooth things out. I kind of like that loose, kind of just let it do what it wants to do look. But we can do a little bit of smoothing around if we want to. And I'm trying to avoid too much pink in the center here. It's coming down a bit, but I want to be able to paint that yellow, and so I don't want to have a lot of pink underneath of it. And eventually I'll have a little bit of extra pink right here on this one that's folded. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. And I might go ahead and start the leaves. So for the leaves, I do have bright green in my palette. This was made with Hansa Yellow Deep and Phthalo Blue, but I also have some darker greens here. This one here is a slightly richer green, and same thing, Hansa Yellow Deep, Phthalo Blue, but it's just more of the blue. So I've got that there. I might use that, so I'll just add a little water to it. And then, so let's add some water to the brighter green. Definitely I want the brighter green. And this is kind of an olive green, so I did, again, the same thing, Hansa Yellow Deep plus Phthalo Blue. But the secret to making it, whoops, I'm spraying my painting. The secret to making it go dull is to add a bit of red. So we can make a little bit more of that because I think I really, if you know me, you know I like some muted greens. So let's just talk about creating muted greens because they're a little more challenging than just your basic yellow and blue green, right? Because you have to add that touch of red. So let's do the yellow. Wash my brush and take a little of the blue. So this is my Phthalo Blue. Depending how dark you want it, you can decide how much Phthalo Blue you want to add. I typically actually prefer to mix my colors using a better brush, or I should say a bigger, rougher brush. I don't like using my fine 8 for that as much. I feel like it's, I don't know, I don't like wearing it out. Ooh, okay, do you see what I just did? I think I put a little too much pink. I took a pretty good swipe there, and I'm like, ooh, let's wash my brush before I get any more pink in there, and let's just see where it's at. Okay, it's kind of olive. It could, this might be a perfect color. It might be a bit washed out. Let me just test. I don't mind that green. It's kind of a pretty green. If I need a darker green later, I could add more of the Phthalo Blue and then even a little more red if we want it. But once I add my water to this one, you're going to see this is a brighter green. I think there actually was a tiny bit of red in this one. It's a bit muted looking. It's more bright. You can see clearly more yellow in it. No, I can tell there was a very, very, very small hint of red, I'm pretty sure, in that one. So just be aware of that. All right, let's go and paint these really quick. Now, if you like a bit of kind of flowing of the green and the pink together, you can do it while it's wet. If you prefer to not have the pink and the green mixed together, you'll want to let everything dry. I think I might let them flow, and so I'm going to go ahead and wet at least a few of these leaves. Wow. Pencil shaving, eraser shaving there. And not even a perfectly clean brush. That's okay. I haven't quite touched that there. I'm going to just come and do a few of these leaves. And yes, I do have a little bit of a muddy pinky color on my brush. And I'm okay with that because I'm not worrying if I have super intense pink. So, or sorry, intense green. Let's see. Come in like so and just drop that green in. Again, mostly on the outside of the leaves. Okay, this one I'm just going to fill it. Let it kind of flow around, and you can see I'm super puddly, and I will get kind of what you consider blooms where the paint kind of almost like dries unevenly, and I don't mind that. That's something that happens more with a cheap paper, and some people love the look and some people don't. And when I'm working on cheap paper, I decide I'm going to love the look and I'm going to really like let that happen on purpose. And so that's what's happening today. I'm going to let it do its thing. So this is the green that I don't believe has any red in it. It's just a nice amount of phthalo blue and Hansa yellow deep. I'll just drop some of the green in a few places, the darker green, so that we almost kind of get some shadows. We're not talking a lot about light source and shading today. I'm just more or less having fun with the paint. But if you decide on a light source, you want one side to be more shaded and one side to be lighter, you want to keep it consistent more or less, but I'm just having fun with it and I'm not even worrying about light source today. I'm just having fun with the paint. I wanted something super easy and fun. You know what? I'm going to just change that leaf shape a little bit there. Do I like that? I think it's okay. Maybe over here. We can always add a few details for the stems later if we want to have some stems and veins. We can try it while it's still the semi-wet, well, it's still wet, but you can see it's kind of, they're kind of showing, kind of fading away. Oh, I don't mind that. I don't mind trying to throw a few veins in here. This is just with my, did I call them stems? I meant veins. Anyways, just, I like the little bit of detail there. Okay, let me try over here. Oh, lots of green still in my brush. Let's wash that off a bit so we get a little bit more of our brighter green on first. Actually, it would be fine to make these a little darker. The wild rose does have fairly dark green leaves. Oh boy. Oh boy. Do y'all see what I'm doing? I'm doing a no-no and I'm starting. I always forget to start at the right, like you should paint from this direction to this direction so you don't have to drag your hand through things. I'm notorious for not noticing, just notorious. Part of it's, I think I get kind of just into the painting and focus on the leaves that, I don't know. Am I just jumping in too quickly? If you can help it, you might want to paint your leaves starting up at this top corner over here. Then you don't drag yourself through the paint. Otherwise, you have to pay close attention to where your hand is. So I'm just dropping again, not taking any rhyme or reason to figure out where I'm putting the green. I'm just kind of thinking of letting the colors just mingle and do something beautiful. No thought about perfect lights versus darks or shadows or anything like that. This one is a little bit messy up here. Just do something like that. Yeah, let's not overwork it. Let's leave it be. This has got a puddle here, and that's where a bloom can happen, or kind of a funny shape as it dries. Again, I let that happen with the cheap paper. That's me. I don't soak the excess out all the time. We'll see what that looks like when it dries. Might even throw a few little, almost like little sepal leaves in a few spots. I know they can't really be seen, but we can just, even in this case, just call this a little bit of a little branch or something coming off the stem. I don't know. I just want a few little sparks of green here and there. These are not technically, the sepal leaves wouldn't come out that far from under the flower, but I want a few little sparkles of green. So just throwing a little bit of something here and there. Not sure I like that one. Oh well, wonder if I could kind of just turn that into a bigger leaf. I don't know if I'm going to be happy with that. That might look a little awkward too. Should we try it? Taking a little risk here, adding another leaf. Let's wash my brush a bit better. Yeah, I guess it's okay. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and paint our purple asters. I think with this one, I might use the Simply Simmons brushes. They're a little firmer, and they're going to give me a little more water control. And I can always kind of switch back and forth if I want to. But first, I'm going to go ahead and just paint the centers of these yellow. I'll water it down a bit. I feel like I've got a lot of paint on my brush. I'll just put a little bit. Yes, my paint is probably even a muddy yellow, but I'm just filling these in, and then I'll come around with some kind of a shadow color. So in this case, I'm going to take a minute to kind of think about the shadows. Here, I have kind of a golden yellow color that I made using Hansa Yellow Deep, a little bit of the red color, and a very, very, very small touch of blue. You can see it's kind of just like a little bit of a golden color. See that? So I'm going to take that, I'm just going to drop a little bit of it kind of in a C shape. Ooh, I've got too much of it. Just wipe my brush a bit. Just drop it a little bit in a C shape, kind of around, water it down a bit. It's very concentrated. More towards the left and lower side of this. It's kind of my goal. So kind of something like that. And a little bit over here and a little bit over here. All right, then, oof, well, that's wet. If we put our leaves, or sorry, our petals in here right now, we might end up with a little bit of like flowing back and forth between the purple and the yellow. If you do not want any of that to happen, let this dry a little bit. I'm okay with a tiny bit of that happening. So I'll take a minute and talk about purple, and then I'll start dropping it on and we'll see what we think of how wet mine is. And you can make that call yourself. I've got a purple here that I think might even be okay. It's just super purple, and I'll want to have it quite a bit waterier. I might even add a little bit more quinacridone magenta. This one was made using phthalo blue and quinacridone magenta together. And it's kind of like that, which actually, it kind of does work. Sometimes I feel like these little asters have a touch more of the pinky color to them, like the magenta. Do they? Or am I just dreaming things up here? Let's put a little bit more of that color in here, just a touch. And I'm gonna have to have a fairly watered down brush for this. So let's go over here. What I wanna do is start with more water, and I can drop a little bit more paint as I go. So maybe what I'll do, my brush right now has a bit of that color on it, but I'm gonna also dip myself. I've got my water jar over here, and I'm gonna dip the tip of my brush in the water, dab it off a bit, and let's just see how it's doing. Yeah, that's okay. Let's come down here, maybe even more water. Squeeze it, or just dab it off a little bit. Just come around, and I'm not touching the center all the time. There you can see I just did, and you can see how it kind of flowed back. It's pretty, but you don't want that on every petal. So I'm going to do that in some petals. So I'm just going to come around using this brush, and this one is a little bit less of a tip than the Artegria. So let you see the difference. Do you see the difference in the tips? This one's just a little bit nicer for control, and I'm able. Ooh, okay, no, stop touching that one so much. I'm able to kind of get a little more blunted end to my petals. Just taking a tiny bit of that purpley color, bring that into the camera. And I'll just keep going around. We'll try in a few of these not to touch the center all the time, so we don't have that background on every single petal. It is pretty, I just don't know if I want it everywhere. And then as it's kind of drying, I'm gonna come around again with a little bit more dark, and I'll throw a few more petals in here. And maybe even put a little bit of dark on some of these ones. Not sure I'm liking that. Let's just go ahead, go a little bit darker over here, because this is the side we did the shadow on the center. And I'm just gonna rinse my brush and let that kind of flow. I'm not 100% happy with it. I might just do it as a second layer. Let's add a little more water. Things were kind of getting a hard edge because they were not fully dry, and they were just kind of a weird damp. So I'm going to I re-wet everything, and then I'll drop a little bit more of the purple, just a little bit over here, and then we can decide as it's drying if we want to throw more details, or I should say after it's dry, any more details in there. Just drop a little bit more kind of in the center here. I'm not really loving that one. Let's see how it goes on the next one. What I might do is just dab the center of the flower a little bit with my paper towel. So try and kind of create a little bit of a small dab thing, and we'll go like this. Yeah, better. I'll tweak the center after. So this time around, I think I'm going to put a little bit less purple for this. So more water on my brush. Let's see how we are. Yeah, that's kind of pretty. I'm going to make this one a little bit lighter. I'm going to come around, not quite that light. It'd actually be pretty to kind of vary how much water I have on my brush at any given time. So you can see I'm not doing all one side at once here. I'm just kind of randomly going around the flower this time. Taking these strokes from outside to the inside most of the time, but if you rather work from the inside to out, I think there's no reason you couldn't. So just varying how much water to paint I have this time, so I get a little bit more variety. And I'm touching that center one a little bit less, but it's also more dry this time around, just because the longer it sits here, the more it dries. So yeah, I think I'm liking that a bit better. Now I'll drop a little bit darker purple in. And again, let's put a little bit here. It's a nice stage of wet this time. I like how it looks when I drop the purple in compared to how it was behaving before. It was just, things had dried a little too much, a little too fast. And how fast something dries really does depend on your environment and how wet your paper is, the type of paper you're using. There's so many factors that can affect that. But put a little bit here too. I think I'm going to drop a little bit of clear water in this center here. I don't know, not completely liking the way it's looking. So just drop a little bit of water in here and let it kind of have a little bit of blooming and just kind of a loose watercolor look. Maybe even lift a little bit. So wash and dry my brush. Good enough. I'm going to come in and maybe add something to that one afterwards. Let's carry on and do the same thing down here. Try and move a little bit faster so the paint stays wet. Doing very loose down here. Let's get a little bit darker. That's better. Okay, and then I'll just put a little bit of dark into these ones, a little bit over here. Let it flow. Maybe put a little bit here because the flower could be tipping a little bit away from the light, right? The way these petals are going. And you can see as soon as I get that line that kind of doesn't bleed, it means it's already drying. It's just, this paper doesn't hold as much water, so it means things will dry faster. And this brush doesn't hold as much water, so that makes it dry a bit faster. And probably my lights overhead are making things dry faster too. I like this one the best out of all of them. I don't like this one, but that's okay. We will talk about how to kind of tweak things when you don't like them. So I'm going to do some stems here quickly, and I'll use the same green I used before, but maybe a little bit more of the olive, and maybe drop a little purple in here too. So I'm just going to come down and, oh, this one I had them crossing over, I think, didn't I? Oops, the stems are crossing here. Here we go. And come down like so. I'll add a third stem in here. Okay, and then let's actually, while that's still wet, let's drop a little bit of the purple color into those, or maybe just the olive for now. We'll start with the olive green, and then we'll go heavier later. So I'll drop a little bit of this in here, just in a few spots, so we get a bit of variety in our green. And then we'll do our little leaves, and we'll drop some more color in a minute. So I'm just going to take some strokes. Actually, this would be a good chance to maybe use the Artegria brush again. It's a bit softer, although I don't mind that leaf. Let's keep using the Simply Simmons and see what we think. Kind of varying the pressure. So I'm going thinner and then a little heavier and then thinner again to get these little leaves. Not sure I'm liking these leaves, but this one I'm just going to I'm going to change it a little bit from what I had here. Make it a bit smaller and change the angle because we're getting things way too cloned or staggered where everything is perfectly lined up, and that looks weird. So just splattered my stem. Okay, a lot of water on here and a lot of paint, but let's do these ones. I'm happier with the way these ones are on this side of the flower. And yes, I think I'm happier with that. Now I'll drop in some more color. I'll just do it too. I think I had a little leaf maybe back there too. Just add a few, just for fun, or even just a few little tiny little branch things or whatever, just so we have a little bit of variety here. And then I'll just drop in this darker green. This is our olive green once again, and let it kind of mingle, move around in the wet shapes that we have. And some of these shapes are drying, so it's going to behave differently on different shapes. You can see that one's partly dry. Kind of like that. And then I'll drop a bit of purple in as well. So I'll come back up here where I have my purple color, and I'll just drop in a few spots create a little bit of harmony, and it's going to actually make these leaves look a little bit more, I don't know, they'll harmonize with the purple in the flower, but I feel like it almost makes them look more realistic too, to have a little bit of the purple kind of just dropped in a few spots. Isn't that pretty? As long as you don't overwork it, it's very easy to kind of massage your purple in there, and then you'll have a bit of a mess. So I'm almost having that problem here. So I'm just going to use a little bit of clear water and just soak a little bit up. Okay, it's okay. It's very, very loose, simple. But now that that's dry, I could probably, this is dampish, but I think it's dry enough I can tweak my centers really quick. So I will take a little bit of the yellow again. That's not a little bit. Kind of dipped into this. This particular paint's preserved with honey, so it never fully dries. It makes it a little easy sometimes to almost over dip. You can see I've got it kind of almost globbed on my brush. I'm just gonna kind of do the C shape with what I have right now, because I don't mind a little lighter area right here. Put a little bit more on these ones just to make them a little bit bolder. Again, I'm kind of almost imagining a highlight on the upper right area where I'm going a little less heavy with the paint. And then I'll come in with the kind of goldish brown once again, put it down. Same area we did before. We're just really kind of pushing this, pushing a little further than we have it. Things do dry a bit lighter, but also once you see it all in context, you're like, oh, you could go a little darker. And then I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I drop in anything on the asters. This one I might tweak a little bit. I feel like they're a little flat, but I'm going to let them dry a bit more. And I will go ahead and do the bluebells, and then we'll come back and do our final touch to everything. Now for these bluebells, I'm thinking to just use ultramarine blue and a little bit of my purple. So what I'm going to take is let's just wet all of these first. So the ones that are behind the other ones, let's just do the front ones. And then, well, you can wet them, you just can't touch the water together, okay? If that makes sense. If you want to not have your bluebells blend together at all, just do kind of the ones that are at the front and then come and do the ones in the back after, or just leave a little bit of like dry space between them. Now, remember, mine are way darker than I hope yours look right now, because mine are darker just so you can see the outline in the camera here. Then I'm taking some of my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to drop more of it kind of to one side of each flower. So let's make the darker side to be on the left this time. And I'm just going to drop that ultramarine blue in and kind of almost like let it create the outline. So I'm kind of almost drawing that far side with the ultramarine blue. And you can see I'm actually managing to not have them bleed together because I did leave a little dryness between. So I've got that on there. And now I'm going to just come and refine the other edge. Go a little bit like less pressure, so I get a finer line on this side. And then I'll drop a little bit of water and let it kind of do some interesting things here. So just go lightly. Ooh, this one's drying too much because I'm getting a hard edge. So this is where I'm gonna have to start dropping some water in right away. So I'll just use this Artegria brush and drop a little bit of water into here. Dropping it. Basically so the colors keep mingling, because I still want to drop a little bit of purple into here. So throw a little more of the water. Okay, back to my paint. So this is, okay, things are much wetter now. So now when I drop the paint in, it's behaving differently. I'll dry my brush and take a little bit more of the paint. Oh, let's go heavier on the left side again. Okay, just very, very lightly on the right side of the bluebells. Okay, I'm going to drop a little bit more of the blue over here, because now that we have more of a puddle, it's going to behave a bit different. I want this to kind of mingle loosely, lightly. And then finally, I'm going to use a tiny, tiny bit of the purple, just a bit, and drop that in as well. So just in a few spots. Not everywhere. More maybe on this tiny little bud. I think the buds can look a little more on the purple side sometimes, or at least I saw a photo that was that way. So kind of like that. And anywhere things aren't mingling enough, we'll just drop a little more water. So this is our water brush. And like I say, I like to work more puddly on cheap paper. So that's kind of your call, how puddly you want things, but I'm just dropping more water to kind of encourage things to blend a little bit more. And then we have some really nice loose looking bluebells. I'm thinking in this case, I may or may not, well, you know what? I'll do the stem, but I don't want to do all those tiny little leaves right away. I don't mind a little green leaking into these, but not a lot. So I'm going to come up here. You can use a finer tip brush if you want, but I'll just continue using the number 6 that I've been using. A ringer brush can be really good. I have not used one, but they can be, I understand, quite helpful for these fine lines and details. So don't hesitate to try a different brush than what I have. And you can see I have a little bit of the green kind of mingling, right, in that one, and I don't mind that. This one is behind, so I'll just kind of go like that and like this. And then should we drop a little bit of our olive green into this one as well? I think so. Just drop it. Again, it's going to do different things on the cheaper paper than it would on more expensive paper. I'm going to go a little thicker down here with the stem. Do I like that? I think I'm okay with that. And then I think I'll use a larger brush to do, like this is a 10. Yes, the 10 Artegria to do these leaves, so I can do them in kind of fewer strokes. So what I'll do, I'll put some water on them first. So just take a few quick strokes. You can see I come in, it's got a very nice tip on this brush, so I come in light pressure, go heavy, and then lighten off. Basically doing those leaves in just a couple of strokes. And then this leaf, I'm going to do it in sections. I need to make sure either I let this dry fully or that I leave a little white, or I should say dry gap between the two sections of the leaf. Okay, so I'll do a mixture of my two greens. This is the light green and the olive green, and then I will come in with a darker green. So we'll just start with this. Oh yeah, very wet. Just drop this around. Wasn't intending to join that leaf quite the way I did there, but it's okay. And I'm going to take some, I took some linear strokes. It's going to give it a little bit of the impression of the way the veins, okay, I'm just in the olive green now, giving the impression of how the veins kind of are, right, on these kinds of leaves. So as I do this, I'm taking these longer strokes. Let's go back to the light green, put a little bit of light green over here. Dropping it. Oh, you can see it crossed over. It's okay. You leave a little bit of light in a few spots. Let's come under here. We're going to want darker green under here because there's a shadow being cast by the one above it. We can do that. We can refine that when it's dry because we're going to have a little white line and that might look funny. So I'll refine that in a minute. Yeah, I don't mind it too much. What I might do is maybe add some of the details. Well, let's drop a little more green in and then we can be more refined after. So let's put a little bit of this dark green maybe down here. Not sure if I'm liking this or not, but and under here. Oh, it bled into there. Oh well. I'll go clean that up. I'm not sure how much of this green I want versus the olive green. It's one of those things I'll decide. We're just going to leave it the way it is for now. I'm going to soak a little bit of this out. I don't mind a little bit, or just move it around. I want it to be clearly obvious that these two shapes aren't mushed together, right? We want the fold to be obvious, and so we need to make sure there's a clear change from values from being light to darker. I'll just, you know what I'll do? I'll let it blend together in this layer, and then I'll separate them in the next. So we'll work wet on dry to get that next layer kind of finalized there. And you can see I'm getting some kind of blooms here. And that is what I know. It will happen easier on cheap paper, and I just go with it. I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going to try, I'm just kind of lightly, loosely kind of sketching here, thinking I might throw a few more of these little bells in here. I don't know. It feels risky. You can see I'm kind of already lightly trying to decide if I'm going to like it, but let's try it. And we don't have much to lose. I feel like it's got too much of a gap, so I'll just lighten these off a little bit. It actually didn't matter too much that I had as much pencil as I did because I went so dark with the blue around the outside edge, so that worked. So we'll need our two brushes again. I'm going to use the one for the paint and one for the water, and I'll drop some water into them, but again, remember, don't touch them together. And whoops, a little bit of water up here too. And then straight into my blue. Make sure my brush is clean enough. So I'll take our ultramarine blue and do it again a little bit more on the left side. And then just work our way across. We'll probably come and do even more on the left side in a minute here. Put a little bit over here. Can I touch that one? Maybe I can, because the one beside it, this one's starting to dry. So that's the other thing. If you don't want them, if you want to go right next to each other and you don't want any kind of white gap or anything, just let one dry. And I'm slopping on this one, as you can clearly see. That's okay. I will take a little bit ultramarine blue. I feel like there was something else almost there going on my brush. A little bit more ultramarine blue to the left. And then we'll start dropping in our purple as well. I'm going to put a little bit more on this one and push it behind the one in front. So if we go a little bit darker with the flower that's behind, it's going to make it look like it's behind the one that's in front. By going darker, the darkness just helps the front one pop. We do a little bit of that same thing over here, maybe. Is that helping or hurting? I think I'm going to go too dark with this bluebell back here. Let's just drop some water in it and let the water kind of just move things around. And yeah, too much water now. I'll drop a little bit more of the blue. This can just be our darkest bluebell. It's not working as well because the one in front is quite dark, so maybe I won't bother trying to darken and push it that dark behind. I'll just let it be like that. And then I'll drop a little bit of our green colors for the stems. The tip of this one is actually really nice for the stems. Just kind of make them hopefully disappear into the rest. This one could maybe come around a little bit like so. All right, I think it's probably dry enough. I can come and do these little leaves over here. So just do that in a few places. And I'll just drag the green up a little bit or pull it up a little bit. Ooh, way too much water on that brush this time. Soak that out. Working very tiny. It probably looks large on your screen, but as you can tell, this is pretty tiny now. And I'm going a little sloppy. Something like that. All right, let's do the final details now on our rose. So I have here my same yellow that I used before, and I'm going to do basically the same thing I did for the yellows on the asters. I'm kind of going to do that idea with this. So I'm going to put the yellow in the center, but then this time I'm going to dot it, kind of like jumping and dotting around like this, around the outside of this area where the stamen are. And I can even do a few little lines kind of to join them to the center. And let that kind of sit for a minute because I'm fairly wet. Well, let's come out a little bit further with these little dots. I'm fairly wet. I want to be able to put a little bit of the gold color still on here. So I can tell things are almost too wet. So I'm going to let them dry. And while those are drying a bit, not a lot, but a little bit, I'm going to take my same pink and just take a little bit of it. I don't usually work on a plate, but I had this here and I was like, oh, the mixture worked okay. So what I'm going to do is that darker pink, I'm going to come in here and do this little section here where we had this, you know, little fold it over, just darken that a bit. And then I'm going to separate these two petals here because they joined, right? So I'm going to take this brush that's got the pink on it and just kind of separate them like so. It's going to create like a kind of a shadow almost that separates them. We can add a touch of water. At this stage, you have to be careful with layering any extra color on because this paper will allow your lower layers to lift easier than, say, a more expensive paper will. So just be careful with that. You know what? I'm going to separate this one a little bit too. So I'm going to just put a little bit of pink along that edge. I need to be careful what I touch or not. Okay, I've got a little bit of dust going here. A little bit of something like that. And if I want to, again, push this one to be the further back one, I can darken along here. And then just soften it with my water brush. Sorry about the dust. You probably do see those little specks. Try and move them off with my brush. Okay. Anyways, you can see we've separated those petals a little bit by doing that. I feel like this one could have a little bit more separation, so what I might do, I'll just take a little bit of the quinacridone rose this time, straight off my palette, because I think that, and I'll just drop a little bit more right here. A little bit, yeah. That side just wasn't quite dark enough. Okay, yeah, I don't mind that. And you can see it's kind of bleeding a little bit there. That's okay. I don't mind a little bit of bleeding. And since that's still drying, I will use my fine brush and do a few details. So just some more details to the leaves, maybe a little bit more of our dark greens. So what I have is Phthalo green that I used before. So as I mentioned, this is my Phthalo blue and Hansa yellow deep. But over here, I also do have some colors that are made with the Phthalo blue, Hansa yellow deep, but they're just a tiny touch as well of the rose. But they will be more of the Phthalo blue, so that makes them almost on the teal side. You see that when I add water? I'm gonna just add a little more water and show you on a test paper what this looks like. See, it's almost blue, but I might use a tiny bit of that. And then this is the green that we were using. It's just, I don't know, almost looks like, oh, I watered it down too much. But it's just a really basic kind of, I don't know what you call that green. It's almost just like a, I don't know if you want to say that's kind of a balanced green. I don't know. Anyways, I will come in here and just do some of our little veins and details here. So I'll just come in here. This one's kind of folded a little funny, I think, the way that I drew this leaf. I'm just coming in here and just drawing those on there. This is a super simple way to do veins, just doing it wet on dry afterwards, but it'll add a little bit of detail if you want the detail. And you don't have to do a vein on every single leaf, or you could just choose in some areas to just do them a little bit more random. Kind of like that. Just going to put a little bit more of this green here. I'm not sure. I haven't even picked up that dark green yet. I'm not sure if I need to. I'm going to darken this whole side of this leaf. You know what? And then I'll do that in a few spots. I could have done that before the veins, but that's okay. I'll just come in here and almost like create a little bit of maybe shadow underneath the flower. A little bit of shadow along here to kind of separate them. Put this one further back. And then I'll come in and do some more details with the veins after. So just put a little more dark green on this one, just to push it behind the one in front of it. Maybe put a little bit along this edge here. Just kind of inventing some shadows. I don't really have a strong idea in my mind where the shadows and the light source of this particular flower really were when I did them. So just basically pretending the flower's casting some shadows onto these. And also just thinking of the lower parts of the leaves being a bit darker, being away from the light. But usually I do think about having a definite light source, like a right or a left side, but it's okay. We're just keeping it simple today. You know what, I don't know, this top one is bugging me. Is it bugging you? It's bugging me. I'm gonna put a little bit of water, diluted green paint on it. Just push it back a bit. You know what, it's still wet, but I'm gonna come in now with this darker green and just push some of these. We are working drier, like the paint is less wet than it was earlier. And I'm just dropping in a few of these veins with this dark color. No, it's bleeding a little too much. So I won't do that right now. I'll let that dry a little bit. I'll just move that around and I'll come back in after. Do the details once that's fully dry. So that won't take much at the end to just add a few more details. And I think while we wait for that to dry as well, we could do the center. I think it's dry enough that I can kind of come in here and do that. Again, the C shape. There's definitely, obviously, I'm thinking a light source when I'm doing this because I'm just doing that same kind of C shape on here and then dropping in some of the darker color as well to create some of these stamens, just to make them pop a little bit. Something like that. Don't want to go too crazy with this color, but it does add a little bit more dimension, doesn't it? Makes it look a little more lively if I don't overdo. A little bit more in the center there. Could even like make a soft little bit of a shadow, pull it down a little bit. You know what, we can do this, and then I can come in and refine that shape even more in a minute. So it's a little bit muddy looking. I'm going to come in and get that a little bit more refined. I'll do that when I do the final details on the leaves. Right, so for the asters, I just want to add, once again, a little bit of detail to the purple because it could just come to life a little bit. So I'm going to put some of this purple in my brush. I don't want to be too concentrated. Let's see. Test this as we go, see how it behaves. You know what? I had my window open the other day and I think I let a whole bunch of dust in. I was trying to figure out what was wrong with my paint today. I'm going, you know what? I think I let dust in my window. That's why my paint's acting so crummy. It's like, seriously, there's little crumbs in it. Oh well. Okay. Just so you know, cover your paint if you have your window open. I'm going to come in and do a few little details, kind of almost like making it a little bit darker on this side of these little centers here, because these little centers, if the light's coming this way, it's hitting and it's light up here, right? And then it gets dark. It's also going to cast a shadow down onto the petals that are right on the other side of the center. So I'm just kind of basically just using that purple color and just pushing that a little bit down there. And then up here, I might put a tiny bit, maybe a little more diluted, and just put it up here. A little bit, not sure if I'm liking it as much on that side. I'll just water it down a little bit, just blend it. Okay, let's go ahead and if you actually feel like you have any white gaps and you want to fill them in, you could as well, just a little bit with the paint. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this side. This one needs definitely something to kind of separate these out a little bit. So I'm just going to do a little bit of this. Almost like these triangle shapes, almost like we're creating some spaces between the petals. And the spaces kind of, the petals that are behind are going to be a little darker, or the little spaces, little gaps are going to be a bit darker. Blending things out a little bit more than I'd like to. Let's just fix this a bit here. Again, now I'm using water to just softly blend things. Just enough. I don't want to have it, I don't want to overblend. So I'm just coming in here somewhat tentatively just to add that small amount of detail. Maybe a little bit at the ends of these, a little tiny bit over here. And then the same thing over here. Something like that. And maybe a little bit over here as well, just a tiny bit. Because again, the way they're curving, the light's coming from above and kind of like hitting it like so, it's gonna kind of block the light and you'll get the shadow in this area. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's why I'm kind of putting a little bit on the opposite side. Like you're going, well, you made these lighter on the right side, right? So why'd you add any shadow to the right? It's just imagining those are curled because it looks like that's what they're doing, right? But I think that's good enough for those. And maybe, this is optional, if you want to add any more detail to the leaves, you can. You could always just take some of your darker color and just say, put a little bit more to create either a vein or to make the lower half of these a bit darker. So you could do either. Just add veins, add a little shadow to your stem if you want. Again, shadow would be on the left side, but I don't think, these are such small stems, you don't need shadow on them. But you could put, like I say, just kind of the lower side of these. You could make them a bit darker in a few spots if you want to. You can refine the shapes a little bit too if you've done anything sloppy like me. Okay, let's move on from this one and finish our bluebells. Overall, I'm happy with the bluebells. themselves. I just want to kind of work on the greenery just a tiny little bit and get it kind of a little bit more refined. So I'll just do the stem quickly. I might just stick with the olive green over here, and then I'll go with some darker greens when I get to the leaves. So I'm basically just repeating things. I might put a little bit. Okay, I'm very wet. This brush holds a lot of water, but I like the tip of it, so I'll squeeze it near the ferrule, not the tip. If I squeeze it near the ferrule, I'll get more water and less paint out of it, which is what I want. I want the paint still there, but I want the water out. And I'll just kind of refine these a little bit. Again, I was thinking of the shadow being more on the left, right? So that means that things can be a little bit like these tiny little leaves. You know, the water's just pouring out of this. The water, the little leaves can be darker when you are on the left of the flower, or even the stem for that matter, but don't be too persnickety with your details. Just kind of get them on there. This is a nice, loose, easy, fun project. Want it to be easy for beginners. Oh, I like those little curls. It's kind of fun to make them curl out a little bit, isn't it? I like that look. I think you can decide what you like on yours. Just making them look a little bit more put together here. It's a little too wet first time around. Okay. Refine those stems just a tiny bit. And do we want to do anything else to the bluebells? I kind of like how translucent they're looking. I'm not sure if I want to add more shadow. We could try it to maybe that little one in the back, that purple one, and decide if we like the look of more shadow. Just on the left, we could, but if we don't need to. So we'll just test it, see what we think. And I'm not blending it out as much. I'm just kind of like putting it on there like that. Does that add to it, or does that not add to it? Or does it subtract from it? Ooh, this time it's subtracting. It's a little too strong. Blend that out with some water. And I don't really love what I did there. I sort of messed up down here, but I don't know. A little bit tiny to kind of pick at. I don't mind that one at in the back almost being more faded out rather than dark, but let's just see if we give it a light coat of ultramarine blue, if we like it better by pushing it behind the one in front. It will, the green is going to mush. Yes, I can see it mushing. I don't mind that being darker back there. Do you guys like that? You can do what you like with yours. I'll put a little bit of blue on this one, not as much, because in this case I do want it to pop, especially where those two edges are meeting. So I'll put a little bit of dark maybe along the bottom here. Just blend that out and call that good. And do we do that same thing to this one in the back now that they're both dry? Let's try that. See what we think. So just kind of almost like a little bit of blue everywhere. Ooh, that wasn't a little bit. But we'll blend it around and see. It's getting so tiny, I'm slopping a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if I love that one. What do you think? Maybe a bit of purple in there? I mean, the blue is really what recedes better than the purple. I think it's because this one in front is just a bit too dark. Well, that helped a bit. I can always lift a little bit out of that front one. Let's see how that works. If I just take this and try and lift a little bit of, maybe not the best while it's still wet. I think they'll just bleed together. You know what? What I'll do after that's dry is I can always try and lift a little bit of paint out of that front one, and I'll show you how I do that. We're getting really detailed. Okay, let's do this one really quickly. Let's move on. So I have my Artegria that I'm going to use again, and this time maybe the 8. Yeah, let's go with the 8, and just drop a little bit more detail on here. So I'm actually going to, while it's wet, or I mean while it's dry, is just do another almost like layer of wet on wet. So I'm just going to wet all of these just gently. This brush is nice. It doesn't lift too much. It's very common to have paint lift when you go back over it, especially on cheap paper. A soft brush and gentle pressure is helping. And because there's not tons of paint here, had we had a really, really dark color here and cheap paper, we would be crying right now, but it's all okay. I'm going to use a combination of probably this green, a little bit of the olive green. So let's see, let's move that out of the way. So I'll use probably the olive green, this green, and maybe even some of my almost like blue-green color. Just drop that on there. Yeah, I'm very wet. Let's use the firmer, drier brush to do the details. So coming back to my olive, so I dropped that darker green, but I'm gonna use a little more olive over here. Yes, this drier or firmer brush drops a little less water. We get a slight bit more control and a slight bit more detail. So I'm gonna do that here. So this is the one that's almost blue now. And let's do that here before it gets too dry. Adding some of these details. So I'm just taking like long strokes to kind of define these veins. Move into the olive green a bit on this side. I'm actually starting to think backwards here on my shadows. I actually want the lighter, because of the way we did those, right? The shadow was on the left, so I should be kind of lifting a little bit over here. No, it's okay. We'll just go darker on the far, the far left side of this. Sorry about that, everybody. I led you astray. Okay, that's better. And do that to this one too. So this is that bluey green color that I had made. Okay, so everything's just that damp, and that's how I'm maintaining those nice kind of lines here. So taking some nice broad strokes, and we're just going darker with everything in this one. I might even drop, I'll come back, oh, try it now. Yeah, I'll come back in here and just drop a little tiny bit more of the dark green so we keep things harmonized. So drop a little of the dark green into the stem. The underside, it's so tiny that I'm not even really getting it to be specifically left versus right on these little pieces. Just harmonizing it basically, just getting a little bit of that color in there. Okay, then down here, definitely this is going to be dark here. So we're going to just do a line across there and just drag it down, and we're going to be nice and dark under this section. You can immediately see how that fixed that problem, right? We can lift a little bit here if we don't want it to be quite as dark. But that helped. And then we can decide if we want to. You might want to wait and do details to this after, or if you're dry enough, you might get away with, don't touch that, where it's like where the edges are kind of touching. You can always maybe drop a tiny little bit of your darker green in here and just create a few details. And then I'll just use some clear water and kind of just blend those around a little bit. There we go. Maybe a little bit of the light green on this side, just because you can make it a bit more vibrant. Now what I mean by lifting out of that one is that this is these ones around it are drier. I can take this brush here. This is a firmer brush. It's a shader brush actually, but I call it my scrubber brush. I can lift a little bit of the paint off, and that might make the one above just pop a little bit if we really don't like the way they're melding together. Be careful with that, but that might have helped. I don't know. You can decide. And if you happen to be really ambitious, you could add some veins to these. I don't know if it's necessary. I realize some of my veins are a little bit, it could be a little bit more like this on this particular flower, but you can decide. This is just the dark green as well. Just throwing a little bit of these on top. Basically, it just gives a little bit of detail if you want that, but I'm not going to be too particular here. And then on this side, I definitely have to darken that, isn't it? Because we were saying our shadow was over here. So I'm just going to drop a little more of that same dark green color just along here. Actually, the top part of it could be a little bit lighter because, of course, the light could be coming. Well, these could be casting a shadow down, but the light would typically be at the top. I'll just blend this around a bit. I'm not going to put as much kind of along the very, very edge there. I think that's okay. Something like that. All right, so finally, I'm going to put just a tiny, tiny little bit of shadow kind of on this little center section of this rose. I can see it's almost, I've got a hard edge, so I'm just going to soften. I'm just going to kind of go in a circle here and try and lift a little bit of the paint so it gets a little bit more defined. I'm not impressed with how my shadow, I thought I was going to get a little bit of a softer shadow here, and I didn't. So we will just lift it a little bit, and I will just dry it just by blotting it. It's not going to be a perfect dry doing it that way, but I think I can get away with that. And then I'll just, once again, I'll just deepen the center with my regular yellow. Out of the camera here. So regular yellow, first, and then I'll come in and take some of the golden color, and I'll just basically do the C shape, and I'm not going to worry about the fact that I don't have a cast shadow beside the center of the flower. I'm just going to try and keep it simple. Just wipe my brush a little bit to blend that. Lift a little bit more out of the light side. We don't want to get the whole thing too dark. Yeah, kind of like so. If we wanted to, we could always add a really, really dark color on those as well. Like probably even could get away with purple, but that's starting to push it. Let's just see if we have a really concentrated dark purple here. I'll probably just drop a tiny, like there's hardly any on my brush, but I could drop a tiny bit if I want to push these shapes just a tiny bit darker in here. I can put just the tiniest little drop of either the purple or maybe a little bit of the magenta, since we have magenta in this rose already. Keep it harmonized. You can see how that's just pushed it just a little bit more. They pop just a smidge more. Put a little bit of that color down here. Again, getting a little bit detailed in that case. Maybe a little too dark over here. Just lift a little bit with the paper towel. If you're feeling super ambitious, you can always even create little cast shadows. I don't know if I'd recommend wasting your time on that, but you can do like almost like these little stamens or casting little shadows onto the petal, really, right? You could use your mixture of pink. If you have a mixture, that would be the best. You can kind of create a little bit of a cast shadow there. You can even add a tiny touch of purple to your cast shadow, just a little like so. That's just optional, but it adds a little something. I'd even drop a little bit of this pinky color into. This is my quinacridone rose. Yeah, just like so. Basically creating a shadow that the stamen are creating a shadow on the petals. And then finally, I did mention we'll put a little bit more dark green just to kind of finalize our little veins. So I'll just drop a little bit more, optional. I'm gonna just squeeze a bit of it out. It's almost too concentrated. I like the color, but it's a bit dark, so be cautious with that. I'll just do it in the places where I feel like those veins could be pushed just a smidgen darker. Like I'm happy with them on here, but some of these where it gets dark, I feel like, you know what, I could go a little darker with my paint and make those veins just a little bit darker. So I'm only doing it with this dark green in the areas where I have a darker green leaf. Something like so. I think I'm okay with that. I hope you enjoyed this fun, fast-paced project, that it's brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, and that it's inspired you to continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again soon. Bye.